These are planes to nowhere, and of course the runway is paved with red ink.
Small airlines with a big payroll. A Target 11 investigation uncovers millions of tax dollars being spent to fly nearly empty airplanes. It's a controversial program that keeps airlines flying into rural communities, including here in Pennsylvania.
And our investigator Rick Earle flew on one of those flights to find out, is this why we're broke? Rick.
Well, David, it's called the Essential Air Service Program. The money comes from a tax the FAA charges foreign flights when they fly into U.S. airspace. Now, we bought 2 tickets and boarded a flight to Venango County to see who's using the service and if it's worth it. We arrived at the Cleveland airport before dawn and checked in for our flight. It's 8 o'clock in the morning and we are at Cleveland Airport. In just about a half hour, we're going to get on board that plane and fly over to Franklin. The plane seats 19 people. There are a lot of empty seats. 7 passengers in all, including me and photographer Ward Hobbs.
It's very convenient instead of going to the big airports for us to get on the commuter service and fly into Cleveland and then out of here.
By car, Franklin is 2 hours and 15 minutes. By plane, less than 30 minutes. 1 passenger got off here with us in Franklin. The other 4 stayed on board headed to Du Bois. On the return flight, we are the only 2 who get on in Franklin. 3 passengers already on the plane, but 2 appear to be airline employees.
When they're running with 1 passenger, sometimes even none, that's a warning signal that we need to reevaluate the expenditure.
Critics say the FAA could use the money on more pressing needs like overhauling the air traffic control system. Right now, 163 airports across the country receive $214 million to subsidize commercial air service. 6 airports in Pennsylvania receive the money. Among those, Franklin has the fewest daily passengers, 5.4. That means the airline gets about $400 in tax money per passenger. Is essential air service still really essential?
I think it is.
Supporters like Congressman Glenn Thompson of Bellefonte say the total subsidy is less than the federal government spends at many major airports, and he believes it's critical to luring industry.
They look at the ability to get in and out of those areas, and having an airport is incredibly important resource and asset.
An asset with a pricey ticket. My round-trip ticket from Cleveland to Franklin was $234. We crunched some more numbers, and a round-trip ticket from Franklin to Charlotte via Cleveland was $605. But drive 95 minutes to Pittsburgh International, and it's only $273 round-trip. Do you think it's a waste of money, or is it something that's needed?
No, I like it, because it's be like a 3-hour drive for me to go to Pittsburgh.
Just the convenience.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the subsidy includes a 5% profit margin for the airlines, but beginning next year, there will be some tighter restrictions. Airports with less than 10 passengers a day won't be eligible for the funding. Now, we will watch the numbers and let you know what that means for those rural airports in our area. Rick Earle, Channel 11 News.
And Rick digs into problems that might answer the question, is this why we're broke? So if you have an idea, you can email him at target11@WPXI.com. You can also reach him through Facebook and Twitter.
I'll never understand why money gets spent the way it does.
It's our job to help you understand where your taxpayer dollars go, and we learned the city of Pittsburgh was shelling out $1,500 a piece for some of the minivans it leases. Well, our jaws just dropped. Yes, you heard right, more than $1,000 a month for a single minivan. Target 11's Rick Earle took that shocking number straight to City Council.
What's an affordable monthly car payment for you? $300 to $400? What about $1,500? That's how much we found one city shelling out every month for just one vehicle. It's not a Mercedes, which we found for $589 a month, not even a Jaguar for $728. We're talking about a Dodge Grand Caravan. Pittsburgh's Parks and Rec Department rents 6 minivans every summer to transport lifeguards and pool supplies at a cost of nearly $1,500 a month per van for a whopping total of $36,000. $1,500. And it's just a normal vehicle, town and country minivan.
I guess my question would be why? That's shocking.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's quite a tab that they're running up.
A tab you wouldn't want.
No, absolutely not.
But a tab you are paying because it's taxpayer dollars.
Oh, I see.
Parks and Rec told us they rent the vans through a contract the city has with Dollar Rent-A-Car.
This is news to me, so
We took our findings to City Councilwoman Teresa Smith. $1,500 seemed to be an extraordinary amount of money to pay per month for one vehicle.
Right. It does seem extraordinary, but I think that it merits further looking into and further review.
And it's not just Parks and Rec paying big bucks to rent cars. Target 11 discovered city police are also shelling out nearly $1,500 per vehicle to rent cars for 3 undercover officers. Police defend the cost, claiming they need to rotate the cars for undercover operations. While that may be the case, Target 11 found out that the district attorney's office pays far less, about a quarter of what the city pays to lease undercover vehicles. The county also leases vans for half the costs of the city.
When you see this situation of, again, 2 of the region's largest governments, they're both performing the same function and one's paying significantly less, that's when like some kind of warning bell goes off and you say, okay, well, why is that?
And after looking into what we discovered, Councilwoman Smith did get back to us. Some of those figures concerned you? The $1,500 for a van for 1 month?
Well, I think that there, comparison to the county, I think that there's a very huge difference. I think that there should be some way that we could consolidate our efforts and get the best deal possible.
So why is the city paying premium rates to rent cars? It's not quite clear. Most of the people we talked with said they had no idea the bill was that high. And they say it's just something they've always done. As far as we can tell, it's been going on for at least a decade. No one ever questioned the cost until now. Rick Earle, Channel 11 News. County Executive Rich Fitzgerald makes $90,000, Mayor Luke Ravenstahl $105,000, and Governor Tom Corbett $174,000. But the man in charge of promoting Pittsburgh earned more than all of them. Visit Pittsburgh's Joe McGrath made more than $353,000 last year.
I would like that salary.
And it doesn't stop at the top. Even with massive government cuts and teacher layoffs, the 5 highest paid employees under McGrath each pulled down 6 figures. And on top of that, they received hefty bonuses, ranging from $16,000 to $68,000. So who pays for all of this? Anyone who stays in a hotel in Allegheny County. And it's all from the hotel tax that you guys pay.
Well, you're welcome.
Last year, Visit Pittsburgh received nearly $9 million tax dollars, and half of the budget went to salaries.
Absolutely not justifiable. And I'd ask who approved all these funds.
We showed our research to County Councilman Matt Drozd and State Senator Jim Furlow.
There's little accountability, little oversight. They're spending millions of dollars on high-paid salaries.
We don't know what to say to Senator Furlow. He really hasn't asked us, and some of his information is misinformation.
Visit Pittsburgh's Connie George says a board of directors sets the salaries based on recommendations from a consultant.
It is in line with other CVBs that are of similar size in the country.
But according to IRS documents obtained by Target 11, McGrath, who's been with Visit Pittsburgh for 22 years, earned more in 2010 than his counterparts in Orlando, New York, and Las Vegas, bureaus with much larger budgets. Still, George says it's well worth it, citing the highest hotel occupancy rate in 20 years and the $4.8 billion spent by visitors here every year.
That amounts to saving taxpayers in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County $527 per household.
But critics contend many other factors, like winning sports teams, do more to attract visitors. And they believe Visit Pittsburgh hasn't done enough to lure major conventions.
A lot of their productivity is puffery. And I really think there's a question seriously about their ineffectiveness in bringing major conventions here to the city of Pittsburgh.
Beautiful bridges, costly repairs. Target 11 uncovers millions of taxpayer dollars spent to maintain these aging structures. At one point, Pennsylvania had 1,500 covered bridges. Today, the numbers dwindled to 215.
Investigator Rick Earle crunched the numbers and the repair bill and asked, is this why we're broke? Rick's in the studio with us now to tell us what he found. Rick?
Well, Peggy, no question they are a sight to see, beautiful to look at. But should your tax dollars be footing the bill to preserve this part of our past? Or should they be replaced with more efficient, longer-lasting structures? 30 covered bridges in Greene and Washington counties.
Everybody that comes to visit us from out of town is excited to see them.
Have lured visitors for decades.
I noticed a lot of people with weddings come out here.
But many are starting to show their age. The cost to maintain them adding up. Target 11 discovered that you are paying for it. $500,000 federal tax dollars went for improvements to the Shriver Bridge in Greene County last year, and the Cox Farm Bridge will get $650,000 this year. Is it worth it? Or do you think it's a waste of your tax dollars?
Historically, it's worth it, but I don't think it's worth that much. No way near that much.
If we're going to sink our money into something, let's sink it into something that's been around a long time.
Target 11 uncovered the federal government handed out nearly 10 million tax dollars for 22 covered bridge projects in 11 states this year. And it's not just federal funds. Counties across the state get a percentage of the gas tax for road and bridge maintenance. In Washington County, some of that money goes for covered bridges.
Well, while our government is in deep debt, Pennsylvania families are struggling. We really need our legislators to be covering our backs, not bridges.
It's not a lot of money, but it enhances the entire experience and is growing this economy, growing this tourism economy in Western PA.
Right. Congressman Mark Kritz helped to secure federal funding to repair the covered bridges in Greene County. He says it's money well spent.
This is a big package of what heritage and tourism is doing in Pennsylvania. It's the second biggest industry in Pennsylvania now.
Part of that is the annual Bridge Festival, now in its 42nd year, that attracts more than 100,000 visitors.
Our local folk here are passionate about the bridges. They drive over them every day. I mean, they're part of their life.
But critics contend that funds to preserve covered bridges should come from private donations or local tax dollars, not federal or state funds.
Covered bridges are great things to look at. They're also great parts of our transportation heritage. The problem is, we may not have a heritage as a country worth looking forward to if we don't get control of federal spending and our national debt.
Now, critics also point out that many of the covered bridges getting these federal funds carry very little vehicle traffic, and some are actually only for pedestrians. Supporters say it's part of our past worth preserving. Rick Earle, Channel 11 News.
It's an idea that's been floated here before, but it just didn't catch on. Tonight, there's a renewed effort to bring water taxis to the Three Rivers.
And as Target 11 investigator Rick Earle discovered, it may wind up costing you whether you use the service or not. Rick?
Well, Peggy, it didn't work the last time, but supporters say times have changed. There are now more docks here along the river, like this one here on the North Shore right behind me. And if you look across the other side of the Allegheny River, you see the point over there where there are docks. They also want to use high-speed taxis, but critics say it's a waste of your tax dollars. You paid for the tunnel under the river and the bridges over them. Now you may be paying for water taxis.
Now, this absolutely isn't anything the taxpayers should be footing the bill for. These are things that are drowning Pennsylvanians in debt.
Target 11 discovered the federal government has set aside $1 million to build a water taxi dock on the south side, and another $500,000 for a private company to buy high-speed water taxis. That company would also have to chip in $500,000.
Port of Pittsburgh's not going to do the building till the contracts are in place. I think that's smart because, you know, we have to be careful how we spend tax dollars these days. They're shrinking.
Congressman Mike Doyle believes one day water taxis could provide an alternative for commuters.
You know, I live in the eastern suburbs and I have to commute the Square Hole Tunnel all the time. Any cars we can take, you know, out of that commute is something worth thinking about.
This is something that could almost alleviate congestion on some of the main thoroughfares in the city.
Correct. And we also believe that we can pick up where PAPBA has started cutting their routes.
Mark Schiller has operated a private water taxi for 13 years without any government funding. He takes passengers to and from Pirate and Steeler games. But he believes there's room for expansion. With high-speed boats, he could take commuters from communities such as Penn Hills and the South Side to downtown in minutes.
We can deliver people from those communities by boat in, we're trying to get a high-speed vessel that'll do it in 10 minutes or less. And you cannot drive that route.
The taxis could also run from the South Side to the North Shore, the casino, and the convention center. But critics say it's a risky venture.
Many times, the ridership projections are overestimated, as is private sector participation in the funding, and taxpayers are left holding the bag.
What do taxpayers think about paying for water taxis?
Personally, I think it would be a great idea. I mean, just all the walking we've done today, but trying to get back and forth.
And it's not like we have the biggest city in the world where it would be such a necessity to get around with it. So I guess I'd be opposed to it. I mean, I don't want to pay for something I'm not going to use.
Now, Mark Schiller tells me he is in negotiations to operate that taxi service, but at this point he says he's not sure he's willing to put up $500,000 to get that federal matching grant. Of course, we will continue to track this project and let you know how your tax dollars are being spent. Reporting live on the North Shore, Rick Earle, Channel 11 News.
Target 11 investigates a dispatch dead end. After a plan to build new dispatch centers gets canned, well, it ends up costing you millions. Target 11 is your government watchdog.
Investigator Rick Earle discovered a now defunct police plan that has a lot of you saying, what a waste.
It was supposed to revolutionize police dispatching and put more troopers on the road. But a decade later, it's done the exact opposite. Now the entire $130 million program has hit a dead end. State police built 4 of these state-of-the-art dispatching centers, including this one in Greensburg, at a cost of $32 million taxpayer dollars. Police said consolidating dispatching from 81 locations to 5 would put 173 troopers back on the road. Former State Senator Alan Kukovich remembers the push by state police and Governor Tom Ridge.
Both were saying that this was the greatest leap forward for the state police since they went from horses to cars. And
so how can anybody not support something like that, right? I mean,
right.
This is a great thing.
It was, yeah, I mean, it was gung-ho.
2 of the centers, one in Harrisburg and another in Norristown, became operational. The other 3 never did. And now, a decade later, faced with budget cuts, state police are pulling the plug on the entire plan. As you look at this from your perspective, is this a colossal failure of government at its finest?
Well, it's certainly hard to explain. When you take a look on paper, I guess it looks pretty good to say you're going to take 81 dispatch centers and reduce them to 5.
State Representative Tim Krieger of Greensburg took office after the plan had passed.
It appears to me that no one ever anticipated and factored in the cost of operation. It's particularly 24/7 operation. So it wasn't properly vetted, I think, first of all. And I think the biggest problem I have with it is not just the economics of it, which are bad enough, but if you talk to state troopers, the system they don't think ever worked, ever could work.
At the time, troopers raised concerns about dispatchers working with such large, unfamiliar territories. Still, state police pushed on until now. The governor blamed the demise on the budget.
Frank Noonan, the commissioner of the state police, is looking to save dollars, but to provide the maximum amount of public protection as we possibly can.
A lot of times, it's easier to do new and creative things when revenues are good.
And that was the case.
That was the case at that point.
Government's very good at spending other people's money, and they don't do it very well typically. I think it was obviously a mistake in retrospect, and unfortunately we need to find the other places this is happening.
4 of those 5 centers were built, but only 2 ever went online. They will now be closing down, but perhaps the only saving grace here for taxpayers is that state police say they will find other uses for those buildings. Rick Earle, Channel 11 News. Hundreds of thousands of your tax dollars funded the nonprofit One Vision, One Life. The goal? To stop gang violence. But now, 8 years later, the group has gone under. So did it work? Was it worth all the money? The office is locked up, the phones disconnected, 24 employees laid off. The executive director says nearly $1 million in funding cuts led to the closing. Do you think the funders just didn't buy into this? They didn't think it was working, or what was their reason for pulling funding?
I can always say that private foundations will always say that they're not long-time funders, but they have for 10 years. They have for 10 years. We're making a turn right now, you know.
Former gang member Richard Garland started the organization that hired outreach workers to resolve conflicts and work with at-risk youngsters.
In December, my nephew was killed on the Hill.
Garland says one of the main funders, R.K. Mellon, pulled $300,000, and the city and county cut another $300,000. In these tight financial times, Garland defended his 6-figure salary and $500 per month car allowance. Right. You're making about $100,000 a year. Exactly. Too much for that job, or was it worth every penny?
You know, the headaches that I get every day, I mean, like you calling me and everybody else calling me, sure, you know, that's what's up.
We have volunteers all over our city that spend a lot of time. They're not collecting paychecks, and they're not worrying about laying off staff because they're doing it because they care.
City Councilwoman Teresa Smith has voiced concern about the amount of tax dollars funneled not only to One Vision, but other nonprofits as well. In all, the group received $2.7 million of your tax dollars, along with another $2.6 million from foundations.
I often have said to the groups, I'm not worried about self-preservation, I'm worried about results. I want to see what results we're yielding for the funding that we're putting out.
And the results were questionable. A RAND study suggested that the organization had little impact on crime, and in fact discovered an increase in aggravated assaults in some neighborhoods.
And I'm going to say this, you know, emphatically, that they have, the people that have worked for One Vision, One Life have stopped the retaliation. You're seeing it now because they're not on the streets.
But Garland had his supporters, among them Councilman Ricky Burgess, who believes One Vision played an important role.
The function they were playing, I think, is vitally important, and we need to move quickly to fill that gap in terms of those services.
Richard Garland has now moved on to a job at the University of Pittsburgh, but he's convinced there's still a need for an organization like One Vision, and he says he's trying to get funding to bring back the employees and keep the mission alive. Rick Earle, Channel 11 News. The Pittsburgh School District is laying off teachers struggling financially, yet we discovered they're giving property away rent-free. Check out this access road to Pioneer School in Brookline. It's owned by the city school district, but Target 11 discovered the district agreed to lease the property to the adjacent homeowner, who owns lots on both sides of the road. According to the lease agreement obtained by Target 11, in exchange for the use of the vacant land and in lieu of rent, the homeowner will maintain land with appropriate plantings and regular maintenance. We questioned school board member Teresa Calesi about the lease she signed 2 years ago. The school district has a maintenance department. Those guys could cut that grass and maintain it. There's no benefit to the school district to give this property away to this guy for free.
But they're not giving it away. It's leased. They don't own it.
But he doesn't pay anything for it.
No, but he doesn't own it either. He can't sell it.
But he has free use of the property that connects his two lots. There is a chain link fence blocking access and signs that say no trespassing. We wanted to talk to the man who leases the property rent-free.
It's nobody's business what I own.
Well, I understand that.
Where we go.
I understand that, but it's taxpayers' business because this is school district property that they're giving you for free, basically, and that's my concern.
No, it isn't. Nobody gave me nothing. And you can walk up that road right there and do anything you want.
I can walk up and down there and do anything I want. Can you come talk to us about it?
No, I'm not.
Kevin Cagney eventually invited me inside without a camera and told me that he didn't get any special treatment and that the lease only includes a small amount of land. Did you know the school board was giving away property?
Did not know that. Not aware of it. There's a lot of things that we find out later on because of the way the administration presents things to us.
I'm irate. I'm upset about it.
Former Pittsburgh school board candidate Lisa Jones has a lot of questions about the lease. She wonders why the district didn't demand any payment for the property.
Ultimately, the taxpayer is paying for it. I like a nice sweet deal like that myself.
So why didn't the district just sell the property and take the cash and get it back on the tax rolls? Board member Calesi says they may someday need access to the road in case of an emergency. And she says leasing it in exchange for the upkeep was the best solution. Rick Earle, Channel 11 News.
Now to a Target 11 investigation. $150,000 of your tax dollars just sitting in a closet collecting dust. The city of Pittsburgh used that money to buy more than 40 computers for building inspectors.
Target 11 investigator Rick Earle started asking what's the holdup and why aren't they in use?
The Panasonic Toughbook, a laptop computer with a hefty price tag, $3,697.28. In November of 2010, the city purchased 41 of these computers for a total of more than $157,000. The goal, to outfit every building inspector so they can quickly and easily input information from the field, saving time and money. No laptop in there. But Target 11 discovered that nearly 2 years after purchasing these computers, they have never been used. And they sit in storage on the 6th floor of the city-county building behind the doors of the Information Systems Department.
It's a complete waste of money. It's a complete waste of money. It's a complete waste of resources.
Controller Michael Lamb tells me what's even more disturbing is that the city was paying a $30 monthly fee for wireless service for every laptop.
Taxpayers were basically paying a monthly phone bill, so to speak, an airtime bill.
And they weren't even using
for
them.
40-some computers that were sitting in a closet.
So what's the problem? Why aren't the computers in the building inspectors' cars? Lamb says he was told a software glitch was the big holdup. But when we began asking questions, the administration told us there were several larger, more pressing projects that needed the attention of City Information Services. The city's Director of Operations, Dwayne Ashley, telling Target 11, quote, CIS has limited resources. Without any new resources other than a project manager in the Department of City Planning, some functions had to be pushed towards the background. Ashley says those projects have now been completed and CIS is moving forward with the new laptops. But Controller Lamb says he's heard those promises before.
They continue to report to us is that they are implementing this new software and it's taking time and that there have been glitches. But every time they report to us, it's going to happen soon. It's going to happen soon. We made the right decision in going out and buying them because we really thought it could help them meet their mission down there. But they're not meeting anyone's mission sitting in a closet.
Now, the controller says he was told the laptops would be in the hands of the inspectors by July, but that never happened. Tonight, I'm told inspectors will get those laptops by the end of September. Now, we also wanted to know how much money the city paid in monthly fees for those wireless air cards. Director Ashley wouldn't tell us, and the controller is now working to get an exact figure. We will, of course, keep you posted. Rick Earle, Channel 11 News.
Okay, Rick, thanks. And remember, you can contact Rick and have him look into problems you're dealing with. You can email him at target11@wpxi.com. You can also reach him through Facebook and Twitter.